Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I hope you enjoy listening to books. Today, I'll be delving into a book called Coders, subtitled The Making of a New Tribe and the Remaking of the World. The impact of programmers on our world is undeniable. Whether it's our work or leisure, almost everything we do on our phones or computers involves the efforts of programmers. According to this book, programmers have quietly become one of the most influential groups in the world. But do we truly understand them? Can we clearly define who they are? When you think of programmers, you might picture someone in a button-up shirt, not very talkative, staring at a screen filled with flashing characters. However, these might just be surface perceptions. There's much more to the programmer community that piques our curiosity. Are all programmers highly intelligent but lacking in emotional intelligence? Does spending extensive time writing code and working with computers make them logically sharp but less flexible and creative in handling real-life situations? Apart from coding and designing programs, how do programmers, in their plugged-in moments, influence our world? Coders takes us closer to the programmer community, unraveling the individuals who are changing the world. The author of Coders is Clive Thompson, an American technology writer. As a freelance writer, his work has appeared not only in publications like the New York Times and the New Yorker but also in the well-known tech magazine Wired. In this book, Thompson interviews a wide spectrum of programmers, from the elite members of Google's AI development team to ordinary coders. I'll be breaking down this book into two parts. Firstly, we'll take a macro view, exploring the history of the programmer profession and how the programmer community came into being. Secondly, we'll delve into the micro aspects, examining typical characteristics of programmers. How does this profession shape their personalities? And how do their distinctive ways of thinking impact the world? Part 1, taking a macro view of the history of the programmer profession. The profession of programmers is relatively young, spanning barely 80 years. Some jest that the ancestors of this industry are still among us. The book divides the development of programmers into 4 phases. In 1946, the world witnessed the emergence of the first electronic computer, ENIAC. With it, the first-generation programmers came into being. However, in the 1950s, these early programmers entering the field were unclear about what the profession truly entailed. During that time, computers were mere sophisticated calculators used primarily for complex computations. People employed them for breaking enemy encryptions and calculating bomb trajectories. These early programmers didn't directly write code on computers, some didn't even have access to the machines as computers had specialized operators. Programmers had to write programs on paper, submit them to typists who transferred the commands to punch cards, which were then given to computer operators. Only after these cards were fed into the computer could the final results be obtained. The entire process was extremely intricate. To improve efficiency, programmers had to write concise programs to save time for typists to transfer programs from paper to punch cards and for operators to execute commands. Additionally, if one part of a program went wrong, the whole process had to restart, so programmers aimed for utmost refinement in their code. Thompson likened programmers to literati composing poetry with bits. They had to meticulously craft their code for it to be concise and elegant. During this era, computer processing speeds were sluggish, requiring programmers to patiently wait for results. People perceived women to be more meticulous and patient in their work, hence the majority of the first wave of programmers were women. Looking back, the first-generation programmers seemed more like workers on an assembly line following a set routine. As computers shrunk in size and computational speeds accelerated, electronic information technology became a university discipline. This era no longer required dedicated typists or computer operators. University students could directly engage with computers. In the 1960s and early 1970s, these well-educated students in higher education institutions constituted the second-generation programmers. For them, programming wasn't merely a defined profession, it was driven by passion. Writing instructions and immediately seeing the results of their conceptualizations fascinated them. Their infatuation with computers reached such extents that they could work tirelessly, almost obsessively, foregoing sleep and continuous work. Thompson interviewed a programmer named Bill Gosper, who would forget time entirely while programming. He felt a sense of pride in working non-stop, not perceiving it as toilsome. For the second-generation programmers, programming evolved from a mundane counting task to an enjoyable art form. They could materialize their thoughts from their minds into reality through code. For instance, the world's first electronic game, Space War, emerged during this period. The game was simple: 2 players maneuvered spaceships to shoot each other down. Yet, this electronic game was created on a machine worth $120,000. It might seem absurd to play games on such a costly machine, and the companies at the time thought so too. However, the purpose of the programmers creating the game wasn't for profit, it was the joy derived from creating something with code, even if it was the simplest of games. These individuals also freely shared code with anyone interested in coding. In contrast to the first-generation programmers, they broke free from institutional constraints and became authoritative rebels. For instance, hackers emerged as typical representatives among the second-generation programmers. Although the term hacker often carries a negative connotation implying malicious attacks on network security, originally, these hackers didn't engage in malevolent website breaches or seek profit. They were dissatisfied with corporations withholding code and aimed to create an open network environment. To these hackers, everyone had the right to inspect and modify code. The second-generation programmers were mostly university students who had direct access to computers in their daily lives. They spent most of their time in labs, engrossed in the world of code. They weren't particularly interested in the real world and were disinclined to socialize. During this phase, the labs were predominantly male-dominated, marking the beginning of the gradual marginalization of women in the programming world. By the 1980s, as computer costs plummeted and became more affordable for middle-class households, teenagers had greater access to programming. Simultaneously, electronic gaming began to flourish, and online forums like BBS emerged, providing youngsters the opportunity to download free games and software, thereby self-learning programming. These computer-loving teenagers eventually became the third generation of programmers. However, during this time, programming still wasn't considered a fully fledged industry. People weren't clear if programming could be profitable, and those teens who enjoyed tinkering with code did so out of sheer interest in programming's intricacies. What kind of individuals entered the computer industry during this phase? Before attending university, they had no exposure to computer courses, so they had to self-learn, requiring strong logical reasoning. Coding demanded focus. A single error in a character would disrupt the entire program. Consequently, they preferred not to be disturbed. For them, interacting with a computer was easier than dealing with people. Computer feedback was definitive, unlike human reactions, which were unpredictable. Imagine telling someone something and not being able to predict their response. However, with programming, using just a computer and code, immediate and certain results were guaranteed. This detachment from human interaction allowed them to find joy in programming. The programming industry attracted many introverted individuals who might seem out of place in social settings, yet when immersed in the coding world, they felt at home. Here, they could evade the interpersonal interactions they weren't adept at and find a sense of accomplishment in successfully running their code. Another notable aspect was that this generation of programmers started using computers from a young age. Back then, parents weren't as wary of electronic games as they are today. They believed gaming could keep boys quietly seated in front of computers, diverting them from mischievous behavior. They also thought programming could enhance logical thinking skills, so they encouraged boys to engage with computers. However, their attitudes toward girls using computers were completely different. They wished for girls to participate more in social activities rather than sit alone in front of computers. Consequently, as personal computers became more prevalent, the third-generation programmers mostly comprised males, leading to an increasing male-to-female ratio in the programming industry, gradually marginalizing women. By the 1990s, with the rapid growth of the Internet, the fourth generation of programmers emerged. In 1994, when the first web browser, Netscape, was created, its programmers pondered, what if people wanted to know how web pages were coded? Hence, they added a new feature to the browser, the ability to view page source. Users could click on a website, view its source code, and see the original code of the current web page. This feature still exists in web browsers today. With the View Source Code feature, self-learning programming became more accessible. Individuals interested in programming no longer needed to seek specialized learning resources, they could learn by inspecting web pages. This tradition of self-taught programming gradually cultivated a practical spirit among programmers. They often wrote programs, discovered problems, and continuously solved them, iterating on the program. For instance, one of the co-founders of Instagram, Mike Krieger, taught himself programming. Initially designing the software with various functions, it wasn't named Instagram, nor was it intended for users to share photos. It had multiple functions, but users didn't resonate with it. However, Krieger noticed an intriguing trend: users loved posting photos on the app, even though the photo upload process was complex. Eventually, Krieger decided to strip away the other functions, focusing solely on photo sharing, and renamed the app Instagram. You might notice a difference in the programming industry at this point compared to earlier times. We now mention another group programmers directly face: users. Previously, we discussed programmers immersed in the world of code, disliking interpersonal interaction. But now, programming wasn't solely the programmer's domain, programs needed to cater to users' needs. Coding transitioned from individual programming to a two-way interaction between programmers and users. Developing software no longer meant writing code, delivering it to users, and expecting them to accept it. Instead, after code release, programmers adjusted it based on user feedback or preferences. This tradition of rapid iteration spurred the rapid growth and expansion of the programming industry. Consequently, this fast-paced iteration culture also fostered a culture within the programming industry characterized by a "no time for small talk, get straight to the point" atmosphere. By this point, you can distinctly feel that the evolution of the programmer profession is akin to a cycle. The first generation of programmers resembled auxiliary positions in scientific research or a cog in a factory line. The second and third generations entered programming out of passion, finding self-satisfaction in it. They might have been introverted, not fitting in with conventional social norms, perceived as peculiar individuals by others. However, programming enabled them to bring their ideas to fruition, granting them a sense of accomplishment. Hence, when they entered the programming world, it wasn't yet a fully recognized profession, and they didn't expect to earn a living solely from programming. However, by the time the fourth generation of programmers emerged, things had changed drastically. They were the generation raised alongside the Internet. With the Internet's expansion, programming became a mature industry and a source of livelihood for many. The programmer's penchant for efficiency and continuous optimization perfectly aligned with corporate development ideologies. Part 2, after discussing the development of the programmer community, let's delve into their typical characteristics and how they approach problem solving. If there's one standout trait among programmers, it's their emphasis on logic. In interpreting this book, I spoke with a programmer friend to validate its conclusions. Initially trained in civil engineering, he later shifted careers and spent 4 years as a programmer. I asked him to summarize the most prominent trait of programmers in a few words, and he immediately highlighted their focus on logic. Why does this emphasis on logic stand out within the programmer community? Think about it, resolving program errors isn't just about scanning a few lines of code to pinpoint the issue. Programmers must consider the entire system, discerning connections between the lines of faulty code and others. Each step requires meticulous consideration, fostering the habit of systematic thinking among programmers. Moreover, the more exceptional the programmer, the more pronounced their capacity for systematic thinking becomes. Since software developed from code ultimately caters to users, these programmers engage in systematic planning, understanding core user needs, what's achievable, what's not, and how to best accomplish projects and goals. James Collin, a programmer who once managed a large-scale programming project, compared programmers to bricklayers, with programming being akin to laying bricks. When constructing skyscrapers, you don't seek out the world's best bricklayer, you seek an architect or someone capable of leading a team. Hence, a phenomenon often observed among programmers: the better they code, the more adept they are at planning large-scale projects. They break tasks down, assigning them to different teams. Beyond systemic problem-solving, programmers also emphasize precision. Among programmers, there's a saying: the difference between a programming genius and a fool might just be a punctuation mark. Even a minor error can lead to significant trouble. In 2017, Amazon's cloud computing service experienced a system crash lasting over 3 hours, impacting thousands of websites. Later investigation revealed the cause, a simple code spelling error. The work of a programmer demands precision, but many problems aren't immediately apparent. What do? They tend to presume that everything on hand has issues. Spending extensive time with computers, they find it challenging to tolerate ambiguous problems. After all, their closest work companion, the computer, is entirely straightforward. It won't tell them they're just one character off, it'll either smoothly run the code or display a program error. Thus, when faced with vague requirements, programmers emphasize the need for a clear problem statement. Clarifying issues enables programmers to quickly identify problems, areas for improvement, saving them time in rechecking the code and enhancing efficiency. For programmers, efficiency is paramount. This leads us to the second typical thought process, prioritizing efficiency. Thompson noted that whenever a programmer could simplify a task, they seized the opportunity. While using a mouse might seem convenient to us, programmers might not agree. Using a mouse requires them to shift their hands from the keyboard while coding, disrupting their workflow and reducing efficiency. Additionally, code should be as concise as possible because cleaner code reduces the chances of errors. Considering that programmers deal with dense lines of code, the ability to quickly spot issues requires concise code. When discussing code efficiency, they often praise highly efficient and organized code as clean or beautiful. Conversely, inefficient code might be described using olfactory terms like stinky code, marking such code as gross. Thompson interviewed a programmer who worked at Facebook for 3 years and wrote 390,000 lines of code but deleted 500,000 lines for the company. From a quantity perspective, he contributed negatively to the company's code base. However, he took pride in this achievement, believing he enhanced the company's code efficiency. Contemplating efficiency, you'll realize that it refers to the amount of work completed within a given time, a ratio of total work to time spent. For programmers, improving efficiency doesn't mean increasing their workload, writing more complex code. Instead, it involves writing concise code, saving time for themselves and others. By today, programming isn't an individual task anymore. Completing a large-scale programming project requires collaboration. Writing succinct code doesn't just boost an individual's efficiency, it's about the collective efficiency. To improve efficiency, programmers devise ways to automate repetitive tasks. The book also mentions an interesting viewpoint, that a significant advantage among programmers is laziness. However, they're not lazy in writing code, they're averse to monotonous tasks. Writing code allows them to automate repetitive tasks, a tool for better laziness. For instance, meal replacement beverages were invented by programmers. One programmer realized he spent at least 2 hours daily on meals, considering it an inefficient way to provide the body with energy. How to efficiently fuel the body? He thought, since the body requires specific nutrients, why not directly supplement those essential nutrients? He identified over 30 essential nutrients, compiled a list, manipulated ingredients, combining these nutrients into a liquid, creating the first batch of meal replacement drinks, Soylent. Subsequently, he replaced regular meals with this drink. Upon its market launch, this meal replacement beverage gained traction among busy professionals, altering their dietary habits. Like inventing meal replacement drinks, programmers introduced this logical, time-saving logic into our daily lives through their programs, platforms, and continuously optimized algorithms. This directly drives the emergence of various applications like online shopping, food delivery, ride-hailing services, tangibly altering the world we inhabit. There's another question, perhaps a bit odd: if programmers prioritize efficiency, why do some still frequently work overtime? There's an explanation: most programmers don't believe work is truly never-ending. They see it as an issue with the company's evaluation of work, not a reflection of their efficiency. However, pursuing efficiency isn't merely about earning more money in less time for many programmers. They seek to enhance efficiency for their own happiness. They can't stand inefficiency, the thought of repetitive tasks is discomforting, so they aim to optimize everything. Each optimization process involves seeking more efficient solutions. Hence, a keen interest in problem solving is another typical trait among programmers. They aspire to solve issues troubling people. Cohen, a programmer, said, "I hope the products I develop are genuinely usable." Thompson also interviewed Leah Pearlman, one of the designers behind the like function on Facebook, now renamed Metaverse. Initially, when designing this feature, she noticed that people, upon viewing online posts, didn't comment much but rather casually clicked. Therefore, Pearlman's team decided to add a "Great" button below all posts, allowing users to express approval with a single click, later changing "Great" to "Like." This feature gradually altered user behavior. Users began focusing on the recognition their posted content received, constantly checking for more likes, somewhat changing how people use their phones. Although programmers attempt to predict human behavior and provide corresponding solutions, they can't accurately foresee when problems might occur. Human behavior is far more uncertain compared to the linear thinking of machines. Despite thorough consideration of potential problems, programmers can't anticipate what users might do, often discovering unexpected issues. Sometimes, a programmer puts immense effort into creating a successfully running program, only for users to interact unpredictably, exposing the program's flaws entirely. Thompson recounted a true story in his book. In 2013, a programmer helped optimize San Francisco's online system for food stamp applications, making it easier for low-income residents to apply for public welfare. Residents could directly send card numbers via SMS or input them on the platform, and a phone robot would provide the card balance. Typically, the system received just over 100 phone inquiries daily. However, in a few hours, the system received over 5,000 messages. Where did the problem lie? They discovered a user mistakenly sent their card number to the phone robot service number, causing the program to enter a loop, continuously sending messages to itself. The programmers had never envisioned users making this mistake when initially designing the software. A significant challenge programmers face is the inability to predict how users might use the program. They continuously solve problems, iterating on existing software. No program runs successfully the first time, each usually undergoes multiple debuggings. The initial version of a program is viewed merely as a tool for discovering issues. For programmers, completion is more important than perfection. However, this doesn't imply programmers rush to finish and then walk away. Instead, it's their problem-solving attitude, a continuous process. Hence, you'll notice programmers are particularly pragmatic. They don't aim to solve all 16 problems at once to present a flawless program. Instead, they continually address emerging issues while the program runs. However, facing a series of problems, programmers may feel defeated. Because the computer won't pinpoint where the problem lies, failure only displays a syntax error. Programmers must find the error themselves before the program can run smoothly. Contrary to what many think, most of a programmer's time isn't spent writing new code, it's spent finding program errors. Computer scientist Wilkes once said, "A substantial part of my life will be spent finding errors in my own programs." Even if a program runs smoothly, programmers can't predict when it might suddenly crash because a user might unknowingly trigger it. Blake Ross, co-founder of Firefox, mentioned that users' unpredictable behavior turns programmers into paranoid pessimists. Every day, programmers battle failure and cope with this frustration. Thus, only those who persist despite continuous setbacks become excellent programmers. So, exceptional endurance is the fourth characteristic of a programmer. You might wonder, with the painful process of coding, why do some programmers remain obsessed? Some programmers derive immense joy from coding, surpassing the frustration caused by program errors. Part of this joy comes from the unpredictability of code. You never know when you'll find that erroneous line. It's a bit like gambling, you don't know when you'll win, fostering anticipation. Another aspect of this joy is the certainty. Programming involves continuous testing and writing. Each successful function test is a small victory, providing a sense of security. When they connect these small pieces of code, they experience tremendous achievement. At that moment, they're like Sherlock Holmes patiently tracing evidence, uncovering the culprit, reconstructing the crime scene, and with high intelligence, ultimately solving the puzzle. Hence, a programmer's self-esteem can fluctuate significantly between two extremes, closely tied to how smoothly their code runs. Thompson noted that if a programmer struggles for an extended period without solving a program issue, they might become frustrated, doubting themselves. However, an hour later, if the problem suddenly resolves, they instantly become proud. A programmer said, "You're like suffering a heavy blow in failure but experiencing enough intense pleasure in success to compensate for the pain." In some movies or TV shows, you might see programmers coding fluently, but in real life, they spend most of their time sitting in front of a computer screen, furrowing their brows, occasionally sighing, and then tapping on the keyboard. Only after making slight progress will they quietly reveal a smile. Often, programmers need to focus solely on code to identify system flaws. Hence, coding provides introverted individuals a chance to avoid social interactions while showcasing their talents. If you visit a company's marketing department, you'll find people gathering to discuss problems. However, passing by the programming department, it might be the quietest section in the company. I've observed my programmer colleagues' workstations a few times, and it's indeed the case. Most of the time, they're facing computer screens. While occasional discussions happen between colleagues, compared to other departments, the entire programming section is much quieter. Reflecting on this, you'll realize that programmers' personalities and their work mutually shape each other. In their work, programmers develop their unique way of thinking. Firstly, programming necessitates rigorous logic from programmers, fostering a systematic thinking approach. Simultaneously, solving problems logically makes them seem somewhat detached. Secondly, for programmers, efficiency is paramount. They dislike small talk, always looking to automate tasks, forming a mindset of optimization. Programming involves a continual search for solutions, fostering a pragmatic approach among programmers. For them, completion is more important than perfection. Lastly, for programmers, program errors pose the most monotonous and grueling test. They must endure successive defeats and digest this frustration as part of their character. Here's the essence of Coders, all decoded for you. In the first section, it briefly introduces the process from the emergence of programmers to the formation of a professional community. The second part discusses 4 typical traits and thinking patterns of this group. Firstly, they emphasize logic, fostering systematic thinking. Secondly, they value efficiency, shaping an optimization mindset. Thirdly, they're eager problem solvers, practicing a pragmatic approach. Lastly, enduring successive setbacks has built exceptional patience in them. Lastly, I'd like to share a personal reflection. Initially, programmers aimed to automate repetitive tasks and solve problems more efficiently. Code is merely a tool in service of people. However, the environment and individuals often mutually shape each other. Through extended interaction with machines, people slowly learn to think about real-life problems like machines, simplifying complex societal issues, such as human communication, for efficiency. Yet, when people think like machines, they're also shaping the real world. However, it's crucial to note that humans are diverse and complex. Automated machines can't replace genuine human interactions. We shouldn't solely pursue efficiency, losing the unique human emotions, our perception of the world around us, and care for others. Congratulations on completing another book. Thank you all for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future together. Thank you, goodbye.